morning, everybody. Welcome to Breaking Point. Sagar's out sick, so we have the lovely Emily with us. Great to have you, Emily.
Thanks for having me. Sagar's, quote, sick. I don't know what he's doing. Maybe he was out last night.
We didn't double check, but I doubt he was out last night.
We should send somebody by the house to make sure that it's not a fraud.
Yes, we need to
a
verify.
Democrat hoax.
Trust but verify.
A Democrat hoax. Like affordability.
Yes,
a Democrat con job. Yeah, that's what it is.
Exactly.
Okay.
Lots of interesting things in the show today. We've got new revelations about the boat bombings. We've got new numbers about layoffs, which are looking really not good. Somalis are waging a meme war against this administration, and Israel catching a whole lot of strays in the mix. So, you know, we are all over that. Pipe bomb suspect is apparently a Stop the Steal guy. So we've got some updates for you there. Hillary is doubling down on her blaming of social media for Israel's reputation falling off. And Sydney Sweeney is changing course. Now, you guys are lucky Emily is here because I probably would not have covered this one with Sagar or with Ryan. But with you, for sure.
But you know what? It almost would have been more fun with just Sagar and Ryan. We made them cover Sydney.
Forced them to cover it.
Yeah. That would not have gone well. It would have gone well, but not in the same way that we wanted to.
I pretty much know what Sagar would say about it. He thinks my whole sense that, and many other people sense that the American Eagle jeans ad was eugenics adjacent. He thinks that's ridiculous. Ryan, I'm curious. Actually, now that we say it,
good point.
I'm interested.
You and I had a debate about that. Was it August when that happened?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So Sagar's on my side. I don't know. Ryan is, I guess, then we'll ask him.
He's the swing vote.
He's the swing vote. We'll see. We'll see. The Breaking Point Supreme Court.
Yes, indeed. All right, well, let's jump into the show. We had Tom Cotton out on the Sunday shows defending the double tap strike on that initial boat, with that initial boat bombing. Let's go ahead and take a listen to a little bit of what he had to say.
Did you see any evidence of them trying to use a radio in the video you saw?
Well, I saw lots of evidence of them standing on the boat that had been capsized.
That wasn't my question. Did you see any evidence of them
trying to get it back up, trying to flip it over?
Did you see any evidence of them trying to use a radio?
No, I didn't, John.
Let me ask you this specific question. Would it be legal for police in Arkansas to kill suspected drug dealers on a boat in an overturned lake?
Well, John, let me go back to the premise of your question. The Washington Post reported that Pete Hegseth had given an unlawful order of no quarter or no one left alive or kill them all. Pete Hegseth denied that last week, and it didn't deny that there was a second strike. Mitch Bradley and Dan Cain both flatly denied that yesterday as well, which some of the Democrats who watched that video and got those briefings confirmed. So that's what the Washington Post reported. That is a total and complete lie. I just respectfully disagree with my Democratic friends here. I think the problem they have is not with the second strike, it's with the first strike and every other strike on these boats. They think the entire operation is not well-founded. I just disagree with them. I think the analogy I would draw is not Arkansas police officers dealing with American citizens. If those boats were loaded with bombs or missiles headed for the United States, I don't think anyone would dispute that we had every right and indeed a duty to intercept them. But those drugs detonate like a bomb all across Arkansas and all across America, killing hundreds of Arkansans and hundreds of thousands of Americans. Our government has a duty to protect our communities from those drugs.
Senator,
that's exactly what we're trying to do.
Can I just take this in pieces? And we first answer my question. Would it be legal for police in Arkansas to kill suspected drug dealers on an overturned boat in a lake in Arkansas? Just answer that, and then I will address your question on the other thing.
John, the premise of your question is not well-founded. Criminals in Arkansas are not foreign nationals who are affiliates of a foreign terrorist designated organization.
The answer is no, it would not be legal.
It's like saying
hang on, Senator. The answer is no, it would not be legal to kill them in a lake. But let me ask a follow-up question. If they are terrorists, when did Congress pass the authorized use of force to attack them?
John, the reason why your question is not well-founded is like saying, would Barack Obama be okay droning an American citizen when he was president like he did to Anwar al-Awlaki?
You are talking about the president protecting Americans, Arkansans, from drugs, and yet just this week, the president pardoned the former president of Honduras who trafficked more than 500 tons of cocaine into the United States. He was serving a 45-year sentence, Senator. How does that make America safer?
Well, I haven't spoken to the president about that pardon. There may be strategic reasons to pardon a former president of Honduras because of our relationship with Honduras and trying to move them in a more pro-American direction. I'll leave that open as a possibility, but Kristen, I think you know my general approach to crime is that we should convict them, and then we should lock them up, and once they're locked up, we should keep them locked up.
So given that, do you oppose the pardon, given that you're saying you want to protect Arkansans?
I'd have to know more about the circumstances.
So some very interesting questions that were asked there. And just let me break down a few of these. So first of all, John Berman was asking Tom Cotton, did you see any evidence that this guy was trying to use a radio? And the reason that's relevant is, one, we've gotten a number of shifting rationales for why the second strike in particular was legal and justified. Now, Tom Cotton is actually right when he says that their problem with it is the whole operation. My problem with it is the whole operation. Yes. The whole thing is illegal. Yes. But the nation has fixated on this second strike because it's like the textbook example of a war crime. So the reason the radio is relevant is because one of the justifications they had was, oh, he may have been calling in help from his cartel buddies. So that was one of the things that was offered in some of this reporting. Well, Tom Cotton views that video and says, well, no, actually, I didn't see any signs of them trying to use a radio, and others who saw that video said the same thing as well. The question, too, about, well, would it be lawful for police officers to kill drug dealers on a boat in an Arkansas lake? We were actually talking about this while the clip was running. I think that that is an excellent question, because what is the difference between we're just going to assassinate random people that we're not going to provide you any particular evidence of who they are in the Caribbean versus claiming those powers on our own soil? One thing I've been saying that is very disturbing about the powers that they're claiming here and their claim that they are at war with these drug dealers is that there is no limiting principle that would keep you from taking those sorts of actions domestically. You know, the other thing he gets asked about the authorization of the use of force, also a very good question. You're a United States Senator. If we're at war, doesn't that need to be declared? That is a power that's supposed to be vested with Congress. Of course, there has been no war declared. And then the other question, lastly, from Kristen Welker, there was about Juan Orlando Hernandez, who we have covered here. That was the former Honduran president who is actually what they're claiming Maduro was and was involved in shipping tons and tons of cocaine into the United States, had been convicted actually by Emile Beauvais, who was funny, now, you know, big Trump guy. He was the one who prosecuted him. And he was let out of prison, which really undercuts this idea that, like, oh, we're doing everything we can to go after this drug dealers. No, at best, you're murdering some random, incredibly low level, easily replaceable, desperate fishermen, and having zero impact on any sort of narcotics trafficking.
We don't even, they refuse to show their work as to how they know who is on these boats.
Yes.
Like time and again, we actually have no idea how internally they're justifying. They say they track them and it's all totally under control. But the reason I really loved the Berman question about when the authorized use of military force was passed is that, well, the rumblings, even though we're in the absence of like real clear explanations as to legally why they can do what they're doing, et cetera, they're probably going to end up relying on the post 9/11 AUMF as their designation, which has, by the way, been used in 22 countries already. And that is likely when all of these lawsuits start happening, we already see some of the legal challenges in motion. They will probably rely on the post 9/11 AUMF, which is why that was a great question from John Berman. And so Tom Cotton's point is telling that, yes, he's saying people who have a problem with the double tap have a problem with the whole operation in general. Yep, that's
correct.
Well said,
got it,
sir.
Yeah.
Yes, you got it. Because again, if we just zoom out, take a 30,000-foot view, I actually think people like Soccer Me, maybe you and Ryan too, Krystal, but like we have a lot of sympathy for the idea that some of these like cartels, not in Venezuela, but I would say like Sinaloa or places that have been trafficking mass amounts of fentanyl across our border. It's like, we should do something about it. I'm not saying militarily, but I'm just saying nobody likes the cartels. Everybody thinks that cartels have been trafficking mass amounts of fentanyl into the United States and that that's a bad thing. What's different, of course, is then saying that's a justification for using the post 9/11 AUMF to take specific actions on cocaine trafficking from Venezuela in the Caribbean. It almost preys on people's upset at what's happened with fentanyl. It's like it's almost exploitive, and
it is exploitive. That's absolutely right.
And that's if we zoom out, take a 30,000-foot view. The idea is right now what Tom Cotton is saying. Do I think actually they can make the argument in court that this boat, because I think our war powers are so broad, and I think our law is so broad that I think they probably can make this argument that the boat was still afloat. That could be a hazard in the ocean. That could, it could mean that someone comes rescue. Like, I think they can flesh out their argument in court. I might not agree with it, but if we zoom out to the 30,000 foot level here, the idea that we could kill those two guys because they were a threat to the United States is completely insane. That they were a military threat to the United States is insane.
Yeah.
It's insane.
Well, and let's put A3B up on the screen, actually, because we got some interesting details from Admiral Bradley, who was on Capitol Hill talking to lawmakers. And he admitted that these drug boats, our intelligence did not conclude that if there were drugs on this boat, which again, there's been no evidence provided of, but if we take them at their word that there were drugs on this boat, they weren't even heading to the US. Rather, it showed the boat was traveling south toward another country in South America, which was first reported by CNN. Bradley told the lawmakers the drugs were eventually heading to Europe or Africa. So Tom Cotton there says, we should think about if this was bombs that were on a boat that were headed to the US and how you would feel about that. Okay, well, they're not even headed to the, I mean, even if we take that example, which I think is not an equivalent example, but even if you take that example, they weren't even heading to the US. The other thing, put A4 up on the screen that was relevant from what Admiral Bradley had to say to lawmakers, is now the new justification isn't, oh, they were radioing for help, or, oh, the debris from the wreck was going to be a waterway hazard. I don't think anyone was buying that too much. Put A4 up on the screen. Now he's claiming that all 11 people on this vessel were on some list of military targets, that they knew every single person that was on the boat, that they were all on a list of military targets, and thus that makes it justified. I mean, I'm just calling bullshit, on this, because if they knew who these people were, think of how much this administration loves to trot out, like, we arrested this bad guy who did this bad thing, and here's his mugshot, and he's locked up for good, or we deported him, whatever. If they actually knew who these people were, and they were some big bad guys, they would have published their names, it would all be out there, their whole history, it would have been put to the public. Rather, this is just their latest scramble to try to cover up what is increasingly being accepted in a bipartisan fashion as a clear war crime at best. In my opinion, the whole thing is just murder, just out and out murder. There's no war, so it can't be a war crime. But at best, it's a clear-cut war crime, like literally in the textbook, when they give an example of the type of orders that service members should consider disobeying. This is the type of thing that they lay out as such a clear-cut example that it would justify saying, you know what, I'm out, I'm not doing this.
I mean, the only thing I disagree with is that, and I'm not an expert in the military law, I just think our laws are so broad that it protects people doing things that are obviously ridiculous, like saying you have to take these two guys out because they pose a military threat to the United States. I feel like I've seen fascinating analyses from people who say it's true, like you can legally justify it, and people who say there's no way it's legally justified, it's insane. I look at it and I'm like, it's insane like law aside, it's just insane because they're clinging to the side of a craft in the middle of the Caribbean. They're not military targets. Like, it's just a crazy idea that how much money did we spend on the entire operation to say that this is something that's keeping the American people more safe? It's all just completely ridiculous. But yeah, it gets extra hard to believe the story that they're military targets. Now, do I think maybe that they have some like giant broad list? And that's the language. I'm parsing Pete Hegseth's language. Like, maybe is there some list that says people who, it's not even names, but it's like people who are doing X, Y, and Z from this port and that port? Maybe. But at first it was, this happened so quickly. Now we know it was 45 minutes. Now there's a leak saying that it was, that they were on the list. I don't know. I mean, if they had a specific list like that, it's hard to imagine that they're not trying these people in court, which has not happened yet.
Right.
They have not tried any of the survivors in court. They have repatriated the survivors, which is, again, very interesting because if they were such serious threats to the United States, I'd like to see them tried in court. If they're actually going to be, if they are intentionally part of a state-backed effort in Venezuela to harm Americans with bioweapons or with narco-terrorism, let's do it. Let's try them. That sounds great. I would love to see that trial. But instead, they're just going back to different countries.
Yeah, they're such violent, dangerous criminals that we're just going to let them go free. Not even criminals, terrorists.
Right.
That we're just going to let them go free and repatriate them to their home country. There is some reporting.
Which is, I guess, consistent with Juan Orlando Hernandez. We're just pardoning.
Yeah, true.
Let them all out.
Let's put a 5 up on the screen here. This is some reporting from David Schuster, who claims he has exclusive evidence that the U.S. Navy actually deleted video of a different boat strike. So the one that Emily is referring to, there were 2 instances that we know of where there were survivors. The first boat strike where they decided just to murk the 2 survivors as well and kill them as well. And there was another one, and that's the one where they decided, okay, I guess we're going to just take these 2 guys and send them back to their home countries. Schuster is claiming he has sources that reveal that the Navy was actually ordered to delete the photos and videos from that second instance where there were survivors as well, so attempt to cover up exactly what unfolded there. And lastly, I mentioned before, lawmakers, Admiral Bradley was on the Hill talking to lawmakers. Lawmakers were able to view the full video. So you'll recall they publicized, I think they posted on Twitter, they were so proud of being able to bomb this boat. That got posted immediately. But of course, they did not include the 40-minute wait as survivors struggle to, flip over the boat and are waving, presumably for help, desperately trying to keep their lives intact, did not publish that part of the video. Democrats are now calling for that additional video evidence to be released as well. Representative Jim Himes spoke out after he viewed it and said it was one of the most troubling scenes that he had ever witnessed. Let's take a listen to that.
I'm told that the briefings just ended on the House side and that Democrat Congressman Jim Himes, the ranking member of the House Intel Committee, came out, spoke to media, and said they were shown the unedited video of that second strike. And he says, quote, "What I saw in that room is one of the most troubling scenes I've ever seen in my time in public service."
So Democrats pushing to have that video released. I think it's possible because you do have bipartisan investigations announced in both the House and the Senate. You have, I think, not a lot of love for Pete Hegseth. You can tell me, Emily, just because he's not one of them. His time at the Pentagon has been seen as very chaotic. He has not been, really brought into the inner circle and given the level of power that a Marco Rubio or a Stephen Miller or Susie Wiles even has been. He's been, pushed in some senses to the side in this administration, allowed to do his little speeches and his little pull-up contests and whatever that sort of track is. So it would not shock me if they decided to sort of sacrifice Pete over this issue or over other issues. It would not shock me if enough Republicans on the committee, you only need 1 or 2, in order to vote along with the Democrats to release this footage as well.
I definitely think there's a chance they'll release the footage because the Tom Cotton clips that we played earlier are really instructive. They don't believe they have anything to hide because they believe this is all legally justified. Fog of war, even though we now know it was 45 minutes. I think they're...
Fog of war is ridiculous in the circumstance.
I think they're totally happy to have the video come out. I'm sure it's not like their preference, but I don't think it's keeping them up at night because I think they feel like they have plenty of ways to justify it. And that's one of the problems with our system right now is you can find a million different ways to bend over backwards and do these legal gymnastics to justify obviously ridiculous stuff. So I don't know if they're even so worried about that. Hegseth's future... seems to me this is becoming like a culture war is the wrong phrase, but if anything, this might be drawing certain Republicans even closer to Hegseth or even more defensive of Hegseth because a lot of the people who were initially really uncomfortable with Hegseth were more, quote, moderate Republicans who didn't love what he had said about Ukraine and were maybe a little bit more in a neoconservative camp, to speak very roughly. And if anything, they're like, oh, hell yeah. We're just striking people in the Caribbean now because of raw power. Got to protect Hegseth.
Yeah, there was an interesting moment with Tom Cotton where he accidentally referred to Trump as President Bush, which was a major Freudian slip there, unfortunate slip there in terms of mixing up those 2 presidents at this particular moment. One thing about the video footage is it's one thing when you just see a boat and it blows up, right? You don't get the sense of oh my God, these are human lives. Like, these are actual people. These are human beings that we are just, deciding to take their lives. And we're claiming that they're narco-terrorists. We're claiming all these things. We're not being given any evidence of that. In fact, now there's a lawsuit from the family of one of the people that was murdered, who claims this was literally just a fisherman who was in the wrong place at the wrong time. So that's one thing, though, just to see the boat, the boat blows up. Wow, look at us, we're so powerful. It's another thing when you see human beings struggling for their lives and you watch them for 40 minutes and then that decision is taken to murder them. It turns it from a theoretical thing into a real human thing. I mean, this is what we've seen happen in Gaza, right? Not to equate the people there with these people, whatever, but when people were able to see in their feed the humanity of these individuals who have, a whole world and a whole life and dreams and aspirations, and saw that being snuffed out so casually in such a barbaric way, that is what, that is what overcame all of the propaganda war that would push us to say we've got to support Israel no matter what. And so I do think it is a very different thing when you actually see human beings and have to account for them as like real people who have families and lives that are just being casually snuffed out in this manner. I do think that that would have an impact in the public, just in the same way that, we heard about the Epstein birthday book and the Trump drawing. It was another thing to see it, wasn't it? It had a different impact when you actually had that and the whole book, and that landed a lot differently with the American people.
It was much more charming when you saw the drawing, the scribblings. Yeah, disgusting. So yeah, there's some reports that the men on the boat were waving, and the question is: was that a sign of surrender? Was that to the U.S. aircraft? Was it a sign, as I think some people in Hegseth camp have said, to their own people to like keep going, whatever? I think that's part of the explanation, is that maybe they were calling for backup or something. But this is to the point you were just making, Krystal. This was not active combat. To say that this was active combat, to say that these people were engaged in active terrorism because they were, allegedly, they had cocaine on a boat, which of course lots of people have cocaine on boats in the Caribbean and it's illegal. And they're going up and bringing it to where were they going? Suriname? Somewhere, it's not the United States.
Right.
It's not fentanyl.
Wasn't even intended ultimately to go to the United States.
And the question, are they actually connected to a terrorist group? A terrorist group that could be covered under the AUMF. I mean, it's all just the idea that these guys who are clinging to the side of a boat, maybe part of their efforts to survive did involve trying to call for backup for their. Maybe that's true. The idea that that we just stopped terrorists is absurd.
Yeah, completely.
Hey, if you like that video, hit the like button or leave a comment below. It really helps get the show to more people.
And if you'd like to get the full show ad-free and in your inbox every morning, you can sign up at breakingpoints.com.
That's right. Get the full show, help support the future of independent media at breakingpoints.com.